Dear students, let us now start a new chapter, simple harmonic motion. You will find this chapter to be very simple as the name suggests. Okay, so or you also call this chapter as oscillations. So I'll write just SHM, right? So we are going to start a new chapter, that is simple harmonic motion, oscillations. Okay, see, we know about few types of motions, right? That were translatory motion and rotatory motion, right? Uniform circular motion, non-uniform circular motion. Now we are going to study a different kind of motion, that is simple harmonic motion. Before understanding what is simple harmonic motion, let us see what is a periodic motion. What is a periodic motion? Okay. Oscillatory motion, and obviously simple harmonic motion, dear students. See, a periodic motion is a motion which repeats itself after regular interval of time. Repeats itself after regular intervals of time, right? The examples can be, rotation of Earth about its axis, revolution of Earth around the sun. Repeats itself after regular intervals of time. Now, oscillatory motion is necessarily periodic, so it is also periodic. Plus, it is a motion in which body moves to and fro or back and forth about a fixed point. In this body moves, the additional thing is that body moves to and fro or back and forth about a fixed point. Okay. Body moves to and fro or back and forth about a fixed point. Okay. Now, what about simple harmonic motion, dear students? In case of simple harmonic motion, body moves either to and fro or back and forth. Plus, the additional thing is that for a simple harmonic motion, the instantaneous displacement can be written as a single harmonic function, okay. You can write the instantaneous displacement of the particle as y equals to a sine of omega t plus phi, or you can write this as y equals to a cos of omega t plus phi. So keep in mind, dear students, when you can write the equation for the displacement of a particle as a single sine or a single cos function, then you can easily conclude that the function is a simple harmonic function. Or you have another definition: if the acceleration is directly proportional to minus y, then you say that motion of the particle is SHM, simple harmonic motion. Okay, so kindly note down, dear students, in this chapter we shall deal with simple harmonic motion only in detail. Okay, so keep in mind that if a body is executing simple harmonic motion between 2 points which are two extreme positions about a mean position, right? Then if the body is at mean position at t equals to 0, we use the equation y equals to a sine omega t. That means a pendulum was oscillating, right? I told you to calculate the time period of the pendulum using a stopwatch. When you started watching the pendulum, it was at mean position at t equals to 0. That is all, right? So y is equal to a sine omega t is used when body is at body is at mean position, body is at mean position at t equals to 0. Okay, we use the formula y equals to a cos omega t when when body is at extreme position, body is at extreme position at t equals to 0, right dear students. However, when body is at any arbitrary position at t equals to 0, we use a sine of omega t plus phi or y equals to a cos of omega t plus phi, dear students, right? It was when body is at any arbitrary position, at t equals to 0. When body is at any arbitrary position at t equals to 0, right dear students? Okay. So whenever I'll write the equation of SHM as y equals to a sine omega t, that means I have pre-assumed that oscillation is going to start from the main position. That means a body was already executing SHM, it was already in a to and fro motion. When you started observing it, it was at its mean position at t equals to 0. Whenever I write y equals to a sine omega t, that means I have made an assumption that oscillation started from mean position at t equals to 0, and whenever I am writing by default y is equal to a cos omega t, that means I have pre-assumed that oscillation has started from extreme position. Body was at extreme position at t equals to 0, right? Okay. Now let us do a simple problem. Suppose there are few equations. Y is equal to 1 plus omega t plus omega square t square, dear students. Okay, we have few parts. Y equals to e to the power omega t again. Y equals to log of omega t, right? Y equals to sine of omega t plus cos of omega t, right? Y equals to sine of omega t plus sine of 2 omega t, right? And lastly, that is an important part, y equals to sine square omega t, right? So identify which of the following are periodic, non-periodic and SHM, right? Which of the following, which of the following are periodic, non-periodic, and definitely, dear students, SHM. Okay, right? So it is or SHM, right? See, obviously if it is SHM, it has to be periodic. Keep in mind, right? See, dear students, when you have a polynomial function like this 1 plus omega t plus omega square t square, it is not, its value of y is not going to repeat after regular intervals of time, right? You don't have many values of t for which you are going to get the same value of y, right? So it is obviously non-periodic. Okay, e to the power omega t is an exponential function. Its graph goes like this, its value goes on increasing always, and definitely it is not a periodic function. We don't have different values of time for which the value of y is same, dear students. So it is again a non-periodic function. Similarly, dear students, when we discuss about log of omega t, its graph goes like this. When you have two different values of time, right, you cannot have two same values of y. For two different values of time, you have different values of y. Again, it is a non-periodic function. So we can clearly state that these functions are actually non-periodic functions, dear students. Okay, now Okay, let us now understand this sine omega t plus cos omega t. See if you can write the instantaneous value of y as a single sine function, single sine or cosine function, that is SHM. If you cannot write that into a single sine function, then it is not SHM, right? Now, can I write this sine omega t plus cos omega t as a single harmonic either sine or cos function? Certainly I can do that. How can we do that? If you divide the numerator and if you multiply the numerator and denominator by root 2, you are going to get this thing, okay? Right? This is, y equals to root 2 sine of omega t cos pi by 4 plus cos omega t sine pi by 4, right, dear students? So this becomes, sine A cos B plus cos A sine B. This is, sine of omega t plus pi by 4. Can I, obviously I have written the value of y as a single sine function in the form of A sine of omega t plus phi. It certainly represents an SHM, dear students, right? So it is obviously periodic. If it is periodic, then it is SHM. If I am writing SHM, I don't have to clarify that it is periodic, because if it is SHM, it has to be periodic. Okay, dear students, I hope this is clear to everyone. Right. Now, so dear students, in the next question, we have a sine omega t and sine of 2 omega t. This individual function can represent an SHM. This individual function can represent an SHM, but their addition, their combination does not represent an SHM. It is a periodic function, but not SHM, right? See, in this question we had same omega, right? So we could convert this into a single sine function, but we cannot make this into a single sine function since they have different values of omega, okay? It is periodic, but not SHM. If someone asks, okay, it is periodic, then tell the time period of the function. So we can easily tell the time period of the function, dear students. Time period of, sine of omega t is 2 pi by omega, okay? I am going to tell you a beautiful shortcut this time, right? Time period of sine omega t is 2 pi by omega, and time period of sine 2 omega t is 2 pi by 2 omega, dear students. So when you have time period of two different functions, you add these functions and you are interested in calculating the time period of the whole function, then it is actually the LCM of numerators, which is 2 pi and 2 pi. LCM of 2 pi and 2 pi is 2 pi, and HCF of denominator, HCF of 1 and 2 is 1 only, right, dear students? So LCM of numerators divided by HCF of denominators, okay? Right, dear students. Now here comes the real question. What about this sine square omega t? We are, this is a really confusing question. See, dear students, we can have, different answers for the same question, y equals to sine square omega t. See, how do we deal this question? See, strictly speaking, it is not SHM. Strictly speaking, it is not SHM. Okay, how? So, we know that a condition for SHM was that acceleration, that is d square y by dt square, must come out to be proportional to minus y, dear students. Okay, it is the condition for a function to be SHM, right? Now, this dy by dt, derivative of y with respect to time. So, sine square, derivative of sine square is 2 sine omega t. Then the derivative of sine is cos omega t, and derivative of omega t is omega. We first differentiate the power, which is 2, and power comes in front, and we decrease one power. Then we differentiate the function, which is sine. So derivative of sine is cos. Then we differentiate the angle. Derivative of angle is omega t. Derivative of omega t is omega. Power, function, and then angle. Okay, right. This whole term becomes obviously omega into 2 sin theta cos theta is, you know, dear students, sin 2 theta. Okay, again differentiated, d square y by dt square comes out to be omega, derivative of sine becomes cos function, and then we differentiate the angle. Okay, so this becomes, this d square y by dt square becomes, you know, 2 omega square. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So cos of 2 omega t, we know the value of cos of 2 omega t, dear students. Cos of 2 omega t is going to be 1 minus 2. Formula for cos of 2 omega t is 1 minus 2 sin square omega t. One minus 2y. This doesn't come out to be d square y by dt square proportional to minus y. So it is, dear students, periodic. Since the trigonometric functions have to be periodic, so it is periodic. Okay, but sometimes they change the question and they ask the question in a different way. Can it represent an SHM? So can it represent an SHM about a shifted mean position? So in that case the answer will be yes. See, strictly speaking it is periodic. Broadly speaking it may represent SHM. How can it represent SHM? See, we know the formula for sin square omega t, trigonometric formula. It is 1 minus cos of 2 omega t divided by 2, dear students. This half comes from left to left side. We get minus 1 by 2 cos of 2 omega t. Okay. Now let this y minus half becomes, you know, capital Y. So this capital Y is minus 1 by 2 cos of 2 omega t, dear students. Now if you shift the mean position to, instead of from y equals to 0 to y equal to half, this whole expression becomes an equation for simple harmonic motion a cos omega t. Okay, then it can represent SHM about a shifted mean position, dear students, right? The only thing is that we have changed the function here. We have taken the value of half, we have shifted half from right side to left side, so we have changed the function. So it may represent SHM about a shifted mean position is also correct, but if they are asking what can you say about y equals to sin square omega t, then it is strictly periodic, not SHM. In this question we have actually changed the function, right? Okay, dear students, I hope this is clear to everyone. Now, dear students, let us discuss about the velocity, acceleration. You know, we are going to discuss few things: displacement, velocity, acceleration, kinetic energy, potential energy, and, you know, total energy of body executing SHM. Body executing SHM. So what we are now going to do is, I am going to assume that body is at its mean position at t equals to 0. When the oscillation started, when I started observing the body, it was at mean position. That means I have to use the equation y equals to capital A sine of omega t, right? So let me write few formulae. Y equals to A sine omega t. Let us not derive these formulae, dear students. So when you differentiate this value of v, this y, you get velocity, and velocity comes out to be A omega cos omega t, right? If it is in terms of displacement. See, dear students, this is a short duration revision course, so I am skipping many derivations here, right? Omega under root a square minus y square. So y versus a is actually a y versus t is, you know, a sine curve, because, you know, sine curves looks like this, dear students. It looks like this. Okay, briefly. Velocity versus t is a cos curve, cosine curve, and now you know that how this cosine curve looks. It looks like this, right? V versus y is an ellipse. V versus y is an ellipse, dear students. Okay, how does it comes out to be an ellipse? See, we get v square by omega square equals to a square minus y square. So this v square by a omega square plus definitely y square by a square equals to 1 is an equation for ellipse, right? So for acceleration you have, you know, minus omega square a sine of omega t. In terms of y, acceleration is minus omega square y. When you plot, you know, a versus t, you get a negative sine curve. So acceleration versus time is going to be a curve like this, acceleration versus time, and acceleration versus y is going to be a straight line, dear students. Acceleration versus y is going to be a straight line. So far we have now learned the formula for, you know, velocity and acceleration of a body executing SHM, velocity in terms of time and acceleration in terms of time, and obviously displacement also, right? Okay. Let us now write some formula for kinetic energy, potential energy and total energy. See, dear students, kinetic energy is going to be half mv square. So if you replace the value of, you know, velocity in terms of time, you get m omega square a square by 2 cos square omega t, right? Okay. Sometimes, okay, potential energy is again m omega square y square by 2. This comes out to be m omega square a square sine square omega t divided by 2. Total energy must be independent of time. When you add these two values, you get m omega square a square by 2. Total energy remains constant. See, dear students, sometimes we are asked with a question that if frequency of oscillation of a body is nu, what is the frequency of oscillation of its kinetic energy? See, there is cos square omega t in this expression. Then you know cos square omega t becomes 1 plus cos of 2 omega t by 2. So if frequency, similarly for sin square omega t, you have the formula sin square omega t is, you know, 1 minus cos of 2 omega t divided by 2. So if frequency of oscillation of a body is nu, then frequency of oscillation of its kinetic energy is double. Frequency of oscillation of its potential energy is also double. Total energy is not going to oscillate in any way because total energy always remains constant, dear students. Okay, right. So dear students, let us now practice few very basic questions based on this, right? See, at what displacement from mean position, potential energy and kinetic energy are equal. The question is, in short form, if potential energy and kinetic energy both are equal, what is the instantaneous value of y, right? At what displacement from mean position do you expect the value of potential energy and kinetic energy to be equal, dear students? Okay, you know, this is m omega square y square by 2, and you know the kinetic energy is going to be m omega square a square minus y square by 2. So here we are going to get the value of, you know, y as plus minus a by root 2. We can get the value of y as plus minus a by root 2, right? Okay. Now, let us do some more questions. We can have a question like this. Body is executing SHM. Its velocity is v1 when its displacement from mean position is x1, and its velocity is v2 when its displacement from mean position is x2, and you are asked to calculate the time period. See, okay, so velocity of the body is, you know, v1 when its displacement from mean position is x1, and its velocity is v2 when the displacement from mean position is x2, dear students, and you are asked to calculate the time period. See, we know the formula, velocity is given by omega under root a square minus, you know, y square. This is v1, that is omega under root, you know, a square minus x1 square. Again, v2 is going to be omega under root a square minus x2 square, right, dear students? So I think we don't need the value of amplitude, so let us calculate the amplitude from both the equations and equate it, right? So v1 square by omega square is going to be, you know, a square minus x1 square. Similarly, this v2 square divided by omega square is going to give us a square minus x2 square. Okay, let us subtract these two equations. So v1 square by omega square minus v2 square by omega square is equal to, dear students, I suppose x2 square minus x1 square, right? So this v1 square minus v2 square divided by x2 square minus x1 square under the root becomes omega, and you know this time period is going to be 2 pi divided by omega, dear students. Okay. Kindly write, dear students, this was an easy question. Let us solve the next question. Equation of SHM is given by 3 sin omega t plus 4 cos omega t, and you are going to write, you are asked to calculate the amplitude of the body. Okay. So this is 3, this is 3, this is 4. Now you multiply and divide by under root of 3 square plus 4 square. This is the actual trick to convert it into a single sine function. 3 square plus 4 square. So this becomes sin omega t into 3 by under root 3 square plus 4 square plus cos of omega t into 4 upon under root 3 square plus 4 square, dear students. Now this is 5 sin of omega t, and we get obviously cos 53 degrees plus cos of omega t sin 53 degrees, this is sin 53 degrees, okay. Sin A cos B plus cos A sin B becomes sin of A plus B. So the amplitude comes out to be 5 units, dear student. This is the amplitude, okay, right? Okay. One more question. A body was at mean position. Body was at mean position at t equals to 0. Was at mean position at t equals to 0. Right, dear students? Calculate time taken by the body. Time taken by the body to travel from mean position to half of the amplitude, to travel from y equals to 0 to y equals to capital A by 2, right? Now since the body was at mean position at t equals to 0, we have to use the equation y equals to a sin omega t. So I am using the equation y equals to a sin of omega t. At what time the y becomes a by 2? See, so I will put the value of y to be a by 2. This equals to a sin of omega t. This a is going to cancel, this a is going to die, and we are going to get sin of omega t as 1 by 2, and sin of omega t is going to be sin of pi by 6. Omega t is going to be pi by 6. Omega is 2 pi by capital T into small t is going to be pi by 6. Small t is going to be t by 12, dear students. Small t is going to be capital T divided by 12. So we can easily now conclude that, keep in mind one important thing, that suppose a particle is executing SHM between x equal to minus a to x equals to plus a, x equal to 0 being the mean position, half of amplitude, again minus half of amplitude, right? So time taken to travel from 0 to a by 2 is t by 12. This whole time was t by 4. T by 4 minus t by 12 becomes t by 6. Yes, is it? Yes, it is, right? This time is again t by 12. This time is again t by 6. So if someone asks you what is the minimum time taken by the particle to travel from minus a by 2 plus a by 2, then your answer will be t by 12 plus t by 12, that is t by 6, right, dear students? Okay. Now dear students, let us move on to in the whole chapter. What we will do now is we will do the time period of various objects which execute SHM, and the first topic is simple pendulum, right? So let us now deal with the topic that is simple pendulum. Okay. After the simple pendulum, we will be doing spring block system, and after the spring block system, we shall do the oscillations of a liquid in a U-tube, oscillations of a floating cylinder, oscillations of a ball in a tunnel across diameter of Earth, oscillations of a ball in the neck of an air chamber, right? Many cases of oscillations of a body, right? Simple pendulum. Okay. So dear students, this is how a simple pendulum looks like. Okay, this is a small bob, okay, and the length of the thread being L, right? The time period of simple pendulum is given by 2 pi under root of L by G. Okay, we can easily see that time period of a pendulum depends on two factors mainly. One is the length, other one is acceleration due to gravity. If somehow we are going to change any of these factors, say length or acceleration due to gravity, the time period of the pendulum is going to change, right? Okay. See, one important thing to note that is time period of pendulum does not depend time period of a pendulum does not depend on the mass of the bob, as long as we can ignore extension in the string due to weight of the bob. Extension in the string due to weight of the bob. Okay. Due to weight of the bob, right dear students? Okay, right. Now if we change the value of G, time period is going to change. If we change the value of length, time period is going to change. See, variation in time period due to variation in acceleration due to gravity. So the next topic is variation in time period due to variation in G. Okay. Variation in time period due to variation in acceleration due to gravity. Okay, so let us do a few topics based on this. How can we apparently change the value of acceleration due to gravity for a pendulum? Apparently, okay. So one case may be a pendulum in a lift, okay, pendulum inside a lift, pendulum in a lift, right dear students? We have a pendulum in a lift. Many cases of lift is moving upwards, okay, along with mg, a pseudo force also acts on the bob, mg plus ma, right? So this mg dash, the resultant force becomes mg plus ma, okay, g dash becomes, you know, g plus a. So in this case the time period of the pendulum becomes 2 pi root L by, you know, g plus a. The next case may be lift moving downwards with the same acceleration, okay. In that case we expect the value of g dash to be g minus a and time period to be 2 pi root L by g minus a. If lift is moving up or down with the constant velocity, or if lift is at rest, in that case you are going to get the same time period, okay. Either the velocity is constant or velocity is 0, right? you will get the value of g to be same. 2 pi root L by g will be the time period. Okay, dear student, this was the pendulum in a lift. When a pendulum is placed inside a lift and lift is moving upwards with some acceleration or downwards with some acceleration, right? Okay. This was first case of variation in G. Okay. Next case will be time period of a pendulum attached to the ceiling of a car moving with some acceleration on a straight road. Okay. So this is a car moving with some acceleration, dear students, with some acceleration a on a straight road, and pendulum is attached to its ceiling. Pendulum swings backwards. Okay. We have a pseudo force ma here towards left, mg acting downwards. Mg acting downwards, the resultant will be mg dash is equal to ma square plus mg square. G dash is equal to under root of g square plus a square. Time period is 2 pi under root of L divided by g dash, dear students. So this is the case when the pendulum is attached to the ceiling of a car and the car is moving with some acceleration on a straight horizontal road. Okay. You can have another case, dear students, which is car is moving on a circular track with some velocity. Radius of the circular track is r, and car is moving with some velocity v. Okay. Now the radius, mean radius of the circular track is capital R. Pendulum is attached to the ceiling of a car. Now pendulum is thrown outwards. Okay. Mg acting downwards. Centrifugal force outwards. The resultant of mv square by r plus mg and mg are going to give mg dash, right? So in this case, mg dash is, dear students, mv resultant of mv square by r square plus mg square. Okay. So g dash is going to be under root of v4 by r square plus g square. You replace the value of g by g dash, you are going to get the time period of a pendulum attached to the ceiling of a car moving with some velocity on a circular track, right? Okay. Now let us do another question of variation in G, right? That is pendulum in a liquid. Pendulum in a liquid. Okay. So pendulum inside a liquid. Suppose this is a non-viscous liquid. Pendulum is oscillating in a non-viscous liquid, and density of the bob being sigma, density of the liquid being rho. Then, dear students, keeping in mind the upthrust in the weight, you have already learned about this in fluids, that the apparent weight is actually weight minus point force. So you get the value of apparent weight mg dash as mg, weight in air, 1 minus rho by sigma, right? So m gets cancelled. I am not deriving everything, dear students, since this is a short duration revision course, so I want to skip. It is actually not. It is 1 minus rho by sigma, right? So g dash is g, 1 minus rho by sigma. So you just replace the value of g by g dash, you will get the value of time period of a pendulum oscillating in a liquid of density rho. Obviously the value of rho being less than sigma, right, dear students? See, you can also have a situation in which pendulum is taken from surface of earth to some height above the surface of earth. In that case, you know, if height being much less than radius of earth, you know what is the formula for G dash, dear students? Gravitation chapter says that formula for G dash is going to be G dash 1 minus 2h by r. Okay, if you move the pendulum, if you take the pendulum to a depth d inside the earth, then value of G is going to change, G dash G 1 minus d by r. Okay, dear students, so this is all about variation in G. This is how can we vary acceleration due to gravity for a pendulum. Okay, right. Next, we are going to observe the variation in time period, due to variation in length. Okay. Okay. See, some important points about the length are that you calculate the length of the pendulum from the point of suspension up to the center of mass of the bob. Okay. So effective length of the pendulum is from this point of suspension to the center of mass of the bob, right? Okay, not the center of the bob, dear students, center of mass of the bob. Okay, so a few important things, that if the hollow bob is replaced by solid bob of same radius, time period is not going to change. Okay, as long as this bob is not so heavy that it changes the length of the wire, it stretches the wire. Okay, right. Let us have another example now. Suppose this bob is filled with a liquid. Okay, suppose this bob is filled with a liquid, dear students, and some liquid. Okay, and suddenly this liquid starts leaking, right? Okay, suppose the bob is filled with a liquid and liquid starts leaking, pendulum is oscillating. Okay, right. At some period of time, some point of time, the bob will be half empty, right? And finally, we expect the bob to be completely empty. Okay, bob being completely empty now, right? Now, initially the center of mass of the a completely filled bob is at its center. So length of the pendulum is from this point to center of mass of the bob. When the bob is half empty, center of mass moves little down, and so the effective length of the pendulum increases. When the effective length of the pendulum will increase, dear students, time period will increase and pendulum will become slow. Pendulum will become slow. Okay, will become slow, it will lose time. In that case, pendulum will become slow, it will lose time. When the bob is completely empty, again the time period becomes initial t. This was t dash, and t dash was little greater than t. Initial value and final value of the time period are same, but for some in the intermediate time period, at some time the time period will increase, pendulum, the oscillation of pendulum will become slow, dear students. Okay, now okay, next case can be, dear students, sometimes the length of the pendulum may change due to the weight of the bob. Okay, this was a very small bob, and in that case the length of the pendulum was L. The time period of oscillation of the pendulum was 2 pi root L by G, right? You replace this small and light bob by some heavy bob, say some heavy bob, and due to that heavy bob there was some extension in this string. Okay, now this, you can say that weight of the bob is responsible for changing the time period. Okay, this is mg of the bob, this is the thread. Really sorry for the poor drawing. Okay, now this is the original length, this is the extension in the length, right? Initial time period being 2 pi root L by G, the new time period being 2 pi root of L plus delta L by G, right? Let us take 2 pi root L by G, L common, we get 1 plus delta L by L, okay? This becomes 2 pi root L by G, 1 plus delta L by L raised to the power 1 by 2. This is T, 1 plus delta L by L raised to the power 1 by 2, okay? The value of delta L is actually very small, usually very small. So we use the binomial approximation. So T dash equals to T 1 plus delta L divided by 2L. Now this rearrangement gives T dash by T minus T is delta L by 2L. So this is, you can say that fractional change in time period is delta L divided by 2L. Just remember this formula. This is going to be a very important formula for us. Okay, right. So if this change in length may be due to the weight of the bob, this change in length may be due to increase in temperature also. If this string is made up of some metal, if we heat the metal, then obviously this string is going to expand, right? So delta L by L, okay, Young's modulus is force by area, mg by pi r square of the the cross section of the wire, mg by area, change in length divided by original length. So this change in length divided by original length is going to give mg divided by pi r square y, right? Okay. Now so we can replace delta L by L by mg by pi r square y. However, if this extension in the wire is due to change in temperature, in that case delta L by L is equal to coefficient of linear expansion multiplied by change in temperature. You can replace delta L by L by this formula also. Okay, right, dear students? Okay. See, if we have already discussed that change in temperature may affect the length of the pendulum, and when the length of the pendulum is going to change, in that case the time period is going to change. So if time period is going to increase, then pendulum is going to lose time, and if time period is going to decrease, pendulum is going to gain time. So we have a question like this. See, what is the question? Suppose a question says that you calibrated a pendulum in Delhi when the temperature was around 25 degrees Celsius, and you suddenly moved to Dubai for one day where the temperature is say 50 degrees Celsius. Then what is the time lost or gained by your pendulum clock in one day? Okay, so let us understand that. See, dear students, this is time period of one oscillation. This is total time divided by number of oscillations. The error in one time period is error in total time divided by number of oscillations. Okay, when you divide these two things, you get this. Okay. If you know the change in time period is due to change in temperature, you can replace the delta T by T is by delta T by capital T by delta L by 2 times L, and delta L by L is alpha delta theta. So you can replace this by alpha delta theta. Instead of delta L by L, I am writing alpha delta theta, and 2 is obviously there. Okay, this is delta T. Delta T is time lost or gained. Time lost or gained in total time T. In say 1 day, 5 days, 1 month, whatever the case may be. This is total time. Okay, this is a very, very important question, dear students. Okay, kindly note down, dear students. Now, we can calculate the time period of a pendulum whose length is very large, comparable to radius of Earth. Okay, so time period of pendulum of length comparable to radius of earth. Okay, time period of pendulum of length comparable to radius of earth. Okay, so when the length of a pendulum is comparable to radius of the earth, we don't use the formula 2 pi root L by G, rather we use a different formula. What is that, dear students? That formula is 2 pi under root radius of earth divided by 1 plus Re by L into G. Now if you take the length of the pendulum to be, radius equal to radius of earth, you get the time period to be 2 pi under root Re divided by 2G. On substituting the value of radius of earth, acceleration due to gravity, you get some time period in second. When you convert it into minutes, you get the approximate value to be 60 minutes. Okay, and suppose you are given with the pendulum of length infinity. You have a pendulum of infinite length. So in that case, time period comes out to be 2 pi under root Re by G. You replace the value of radius of earth, you replace the value of acceleration due to gravity, you will get some time period in seconds. When you convert that into minutes, you are going to get 84.6 minutes. Okay, we'll come across this 84.6 minutes many times during physics, right? 4 times. Okay, can you note down, dear students? So one more question based on length of the pendulum. See, dear students, you have two pendulums. One is of length 121 centimeter and the other pendulum is of length 100 centimeter. Okay, both the pendulums start oscillating together. After how many minimum oscillations of the say shorter pendulum, they will be in same phase again. Okay, so the question is, after how many oscillations of smaller or longer, whatever, of smaller pendulum they will be in same phase again. Okay, after how many oscillations of the smaller pendulum, they will be in same phase again. See, obviously the smaller pendulum is going to swing faster and it is going to cover more oscillations in the same time, right? So for say total into some time t, the smaller pendulum makes n plus 1 oscillations and the longer pendulum means n oscillations in the same time period. Okay, so this n plus 1 is into 2 pi root L. I am taking the value to be 100 only, since the time period on both the sides, length on both the sides is in centimeter, centimeter and centimeter are going to cancel. I am least bothered about the units in this case. 2 pi root L by G, okay, n into 2 pi root 1 to 1 divided by G. Okay, let me cancel few things. Some things are going to die, G is going to die, 2 pi is going to die. Okay, this n plus 1 into 10 is equal to n times 11. So n plus 1 by n is going to be 11 by 10. So n is equal to 10, dear students, least value of n. So shorter pendulum completes 11 oscillation, longer pendulum completes 10 oscillations in that time. Shorter pendulum will complete 11 oscillations, when they will in same phase again, when they are in same phase again, when they are in same phase again. Okay, right, dear students? Okay, kindly note down, So dear students, after completing this, a simple pendulum, let us now move on to the next topic, that is physical pendulum. See, in case of a simple pendulum, we have a string and obviously a bob attached to the string, right? But in case of physical pendulum, we can have a rod, we can have a disc, we can have a ring, we can have any object whose center of mass and moment of inertia is known, and we can make that body oscillate, and in that case we can calculate the time period of the body. So dear students, after doing simple pendulum, let us now start a new topic, that is physical pendulum. Okay, it is very closely related to simple pendulum. Physical pendulum. Some very important key points about physical pendulum. It may be any body, right? And this is the point of suspension, and this must be the center of mass of the body. The distance between the point of suspension and center of mass is L, right? Then the time period of oscillation of the body is, it may be anything, right? The time period of oscillation of this body is 2 pi under root I naught divided by mg L. See dear students, L is the distance between the axis of obviously the point of suspension and the center of mass of the body, and I naught is the moment of inertia. I naught is MOI, moment of inertia about an axis passing through point of suspension. About an axis passing through point of suspension. Okay, right. Keep in mind, for the minimum time period, for minimum time period of this physical pendulum, the radius of gyration of the body must be equal to the L, value of L. L is the distance between point of suspension and axis of and center of mass. Okay. Let us now calculate the time period of a ring. Suppose we have a ring. Okay, this is a ring and suspension, point of suspension is this point, and you are asked to calculate the time period of this ring. Okay, so T is equal to, dear students, 2 pi, right? I naught is the moment of inertia of the ring about this axis, that is a tangent perpendicular to the ring. So mr square plus parallel axis theorem, mr square. So I naught is going to be 2 mr square, dear students. Okay, divided by mg, distance between the center of mass and point of suspension is also equal to r. This is all about the time period of a ring. Okay, right, dear students. Kindly note down, dear students. So after doing the pendulum part, dear students, let us move on to the spring block system. Okay. So spring. Okay. Right. So you know that, dear students, that this is a frictionless surface, block of mass m. Block of mass m is attached to a spring of spring constant k. Spring is little stretched and released. The block will start oscillating with a time period that is 2 pi root m divided by k. Okay, we are neglecting any kind of friction here. Okay, right. Now just remember the formula for series and parallel grouping of springs. If you have two springs in series, their effective spring constant is given by 1 upon k in series is 1 upon k1 plus 1 upon k2. This can be extended to a combination of many springs, right? And for parallel combination, dear students, you have a formula. Actually, the spring combination is like capacitors. Okay. So k in parallel is going to be k1 plus k2. This is k1, this is k2. Okay. So the effective value of spring constant in parallel combination is K1 plus K2, and in series combination it is K1 K2 divided by, dear students, K1 plus K2. Okay, right. Now let us discuss some few important points about this. Suppose, see, we always have spring that is massless. Suppose the mass of the spring is also given, right? In that case, we use the energy method to calculate the time period, and obviously I am not going to discuss the derivation. Then in that case, time period is given by 2 pi under root capital M plus effective mass of the spring is 1/3 the mass of the spring, dear students, right? If the spring has some mass M, then the time period of oscillation of the spring block system is given by this formula. Okay, right. Again, two body oscillator. For one important thing is that two body oscillator, right? So we have, suppose, two blocks each having mass M attached to a spring having spring constant K, right? Now the blocks are moved close to each other and released. They start oscillating with a time period that is given by, dear students, 2 pi not root M by K, but is given by 2 pi root mu by K. What is mu? Mu is called, dear students, reduced mass. It is M1 into M2. In this case both are M1 into M2 divided by M1 plus M2. This was the concept of reduced mass, dear students. Okay, right. Now let us discuss a case in which string is converted, a very good variant of the question. There is a string. You know the Young's modulus of this string, area of cross section and length of this string. And then we have a spring, both in series combination. And you are asked to calculate this is a string, this is a spring. You are asked to calculate the, time period of the combination. So what do we do in this case? See, a string, formula for, Young's modulus is force upon area, change in length divided by original length. So YA by L is equal to F divided by delta L, which is actually the value of spring constant for a string, force constant for a string. So string also behaves like a spring. Okay, a string, dear students, mark my words, listen to it very carefully. A string behaves like a spring, and the spring constant, force constant of that string can be written as Young's modulus into cross section area divided by length. And obviously we had another spring having spring constant K, mass M, and obviously when they are connected in series, their effective combination is going to be K1 into K2 divided by K1 plus K2. So time period is going to come out to be 2 pi root M divided by the effective value of spring constant, dear students, right? Okay. Suppose we have some question like this. We have a different type of question like this. Spring, tied to a solid cylinder. Okay, dear students, solid cylinder. And you are asked to calculate the time period of oscillation. Cylinder rolls without slipping. Thus given that cylinder rolls without slipping. Okay. So dear students, remember one thing. In this case, the shortcut for time period is 2 pi under root beta M by K. We have already learned this super beautiful shortcut of beta in rolling motion. We cracked almost every question of rolling motion with the help of beta, and I am very sure that this beta is going to help you in your NEET exam. If a question on rolling motion comes, you will be definitely able to solve with the help of the beautiful shortcut made by me, that was beta, rolling number. Okay, You know that value of beta is 1 plus I by mr square, dear students. And for solid cylinder, the moment of inertia is mr square by 2 divided by mr square. So value of beta becomes 3 by 2. Okay, right. This was solid cylinder. Let us now discuss a case in which you have, say, infinite springs. Okay, infinite springs in series to infinity. Okay, to infinity. Spring constant is k, 2k, 4k up to infinity. Now you are going to calculate, you are asked to calculate the time period of oscillation of the spring block system, right? So 1 upon k effective is 1 upon k plus 1 upon 2k plus 1 upon 4k up to infinity. 1 upon k effective is 1 upon k 1 plus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 2 square up to infinity. This is the case of infinite GP, geometric progression. This is A. Each term gets multiplied by half, so this is common ratio, and you can easily say that this is 1 by k, formula is A divided by 1 minus R, right? So effective value of k comes out to be k by 2. Now time period is 2 pi under root m by k effective. Time period is given by 2 pi under root of m divided by k effective, dear students, right? Okay. Now see one important thing. There are two springs, block between them, spring constant k1, spring constant k2, block of mass m. So when you have this type of arrangement, right, and you are asked to calculate the time period, so now you displace the block, say, towards right and just calculate the restoring force, and you will see that the restoring force due to both these springs will be in the same direction. When you move the block from here to this point, the right spring gets compressed and the left spring gets stretched, and both are going to exert the restoring force in the same direction. This is the restoring force k1x, this is the restoring force k2x. Both the springs are going to exert the restoring force in the same direction. So when the restoring forces get added up, right, their spring constants also get added up. Okay, so in this case also, this case is also treated like a parallel combination. Although it is not a parallel combination, it is treated like a parallel combination. Okay, dear students. Now let us do another variant of the same problem, in which we will be using this type of combination of spring, also the concept of reduced mass. Okay, right. Suppose you have a frictionless tube here. Mass of this ball is m, mass of this ball is also m, right? And this is a spring. Another spring, spring constant being k, spring constant being k. See, the balls are moved closer to each other, released, they start executing SHM. You are asked to calculate the obviously the time period of SHM. See, obviously both the balls are oscillating. This is a coupled oscillator. You have to use the concept of reduced mass, m1 m2 divided by m1 plus m2. You get the value of mu as m by 2. And when these springs are attached like this, that if you move a block, one spring gets stretched, other get compressed, and they exert the restoring force in the same sense. This is getting compressed, this is getting stretched. The compressed spring when released exerts a force like this. The stretched string when tries to regain its original shape exerts the force in the same sense. So their spring constants get added up. Okay. Right, dear students? So we get the value of time period as 2 pi under root mu divided by the effective value of spring constant. Okay, right. Now let us discuss a case. There is a particle of mass m here. All the springs have spring constant K. Angle being 90 degrees, this being 45 degrees, this again being 45 degrees. If the block is moved by some distance x downwards, you have to calculate the time period of oscillation after it is released. Right, dear students? See, how do we do this type of question? We cannot treat this combination to be either series combination or parallel combination. So we have to go by the conventional method here. Suppose the spring moves by distance x, the component of x, that is x dash, this spring stretches by, this is x cos 45, component of x cos 45. This spring also stretches by x cos 45. Okay. Now let us discuss about the restoring forces. This spring is going to exert the restoring force in this way, kx, it was stretched by distance x. Okay. It is going to exert the restoring force kx dash in this direction. This spring is also going to exert the force kx dash. This is 45, this is 45. Now let us calculate the restoring force along this vertical direction. This is kx, this is kx dash cos 45, kx dash cos 45. This is again kx dash cos 45, right? Okay. Now just replace the value of x dash, which is again x by root 2. Again x by root 2, root 2 into root 2 becomes 2, root 2 into root 2 becomes 2. Okay. This is restoring force. This is ma, which becomes minus 2kx. Acceleration comes out to be minus 2k by m into x. This is minus omega square x minus 2k by m into x. Okay. So omega is going to be under root 2k by m. And I expect the value of time period to be 2 pi divided by omega. This is indeed a good question, dear students. Okay. So when you move this particle by x, they get stretched by x dash, they exert the restoring force kx dash. When you take the resultant of kx dash and kx dash, the net resultant comes out to be in the vertical direction, which is kx plus kx dash cos 45 plus kx dash cos 45. You replace the value of x dash by x cos 45, which is x by root 2. You get the net restoring force to be minus 2kx. Okay, right. Now, dear students, after doing this, the conventional case of spring block system, let us discuss some other problems based on oscillation. Okay, see, one is oscillations of a liquid in a U tube, or you can say that V tube also we have. Okay, first of all, let me write the formula for oscillation of a liquid in a V tube. Let this angle be theta 1, let this angle be theta 2. Okay. Area of cross section to be A. Mass of the liquid present inside the tube to be m. density of the liquid to be rho. So time period is 2 pi under root m divided by rho into g into area sin theta 1 plus sin theta 2. Okay, this is the formula for oscillation of a liquid in a V tube. If this becomes the U tube, what happens in that case? If this becomes the U tube, then in that case, then theta 1 and theta 2 will become 90 degrees. Theta 1 and theta 2 will become 90 degrees, dear students. Okay. So now this time period becomes 2 pi under root of, m divided by sin 90 plus sin 90 becomes 1 plus 1, 2 rho Ga, 2 pi under root, okay. Let the height or let the length of the liquid column be L, okay. Let the length of the liquid column be L. So this mass will be area into length, that is the volume, into density. 2 rho g into area. We are going to cancel few things. Rho gets cancelled, area gets cancelled, right? So we get the value of time period to be 2 pi root L by 2g. If the loop is very narrow, right, you can consider the length of the pendulum to be twice the height of liquid in one limb. Okay, L is equal to 2h. L is equal to 2h. Right, dear students? Okay. We have not derived this formula. This was, a standard formula which we have already done even in the full course also. Right? Next we have oscillations of a floating cylinder. Oscillations of a floating cylinder. This is oscillations of a floating cylinder. See, dear students, this is a cylinder. Of height h, right? Density of the cylinder being sigma, density of the liquid being rho. So time period of oscillation of cylinder is given by 2 pi under root of h sigma divided by rho into g, right? This is the time period of oscillations of a floating cylinder. Sigma is the density of the cylinder, rho is the density of the liquid, dear students. Okay. Next we have, oscillations of a ball in a tunnel across diameter of earth. So this is the tunnel across diameter earth, or you have a tunnel across, any chord of earth. So oscillations of a ball in a tunnel across diameter of earth, or if you make a chord across any chord of earth, right? Okay. You throw a ball in a tunnel across diameter. If you throw a ball in a tunnel across any chord of earth, time period is going to be same, and time period comes out to be 2 pi under root capital R by G, dear students, which is 84.6 minutes. Okay, which is 84.6 minutes, which is also the time period of a pendulum of infinite length, right? Okay. We are just revising the formula because we don't have to derive these formula in the short duration revision course. Next we have oscillations of a ball in the neck of an air chamber. Okay. Oscillations of a ball in the neck of an air chamber. Okay. So if you have an air chamber, and a ball is oscillating in the neck of an air chamber, right? Then time period of oscillation of that ball is given by t equals to, symbols have their usual meaning. This is A, mass of the ball being m, so this is 2 pi by capital A under root of mv by bulk modulus, right? V is the volume of the chamber and B is the bulk modulus of elasticity of the gas present inside the chamber, okay, right. So if the case is isothermal, for isothermal process bulk modulus is will be equal to pressure. For adiabatic process bulk modulus will be equal to gamma p, dear students, okay, right. So you can easily replace the value and get the answer, right. Dear students, let us now move to the next topic, that is damped oscillations. Okay, quickly discuss, let us discuss the damped oscillations now. See, so far we used to ignore the damping forces, we used to ignore the friction due to air, due to liquid, whatever, right? But in actually there is friction, actually there are resistive forces present, okay. So gradually oscillations, every oscillation dies out, right. See, suppose you have a container filled with honey, okay, which is a viscous liquid having some coefficient of viscosity eta, and you tie a spherical body, right, to a spring of spring constant K. The body oscillates, okay, right. Now in that case, when you move the body downwards with some distance x, by some distance x, or some way, at some moment of time the bob is moving with velocity v, the net force acting on the bob is minus kx in the upward direction, and it is 6 pi eta rv viscous force. We can write that as bv, b is damping constant, right. This becomes ma plus kx plus bv equals to 0. Acceleration is actually d square x by dt square. Velocity is actually dx by dt, and this is x, kx. This is the second order differential equation. This is the differential equation for a damped oscillator, okay. The solution of the differential equation is given by x is equal to a naught e to the power minus bt by 2m sine of omega dash t plus phi. This omega dash is, dear students, under root of k by m. Under root of k by m would have been the angular frequency when the damping forces were in fact absent. K by m minus b square by 4m square, dear students, okay, right. Now this term gives the amplitude of the damped oscillator, okay. This term gives the amplitude of the damped oscillator, dear students, and we can see that amplitude decreases exponentially. Amplitude decreases, amplitude decreases, dear students, exponentially, okay. Can we calculate the half-life? Yes, we can calculate the time in which amplitude reduces to half of its initial value, okay. So time in which amplitude decreases to half of initial value, decreases to a naught by 2, okay. Let us put the value of a to be a naught by 2. It is a naught e to the power minus bt by 2m. Now a naught is going to cancel, dear students, and this e to the power bt by 2m will become 2. Okay, is it? Yes, it is. We'll take the reciprocal, and Bt by 2m is going to be, ln2, right? And obviously this half-life for amplitude is going to be ln2 divided by b by 2m. Okay, if they ask you in how much time the energy decreases to half of initial value, for energy this half-life will be, for energy the half-life will be ln2 divided by b by m. It is the time in which the energy decreases to half of initial value. Since the dissipating forces are present, so energy is going to decrease with time, right? Okay. There is a very simple and popular question that we usually see in the exams based on damped oscillator, and let us try to solve that question with the help of a beautiful shortcut, dear students. Okay. Suppose you are given that amplitude of a damped oscillator becomes half in 5 minutes, and what amplitude do you expect after the next 10 minutes? Easy. So this 5 minutes is actually the half-life. So in the next 5 minutes it is going to be 1/4. Okay, again dividing it by 2. Okay, again in the next 5 minutes amplitude is going to be, a0 divided by 8, right? So 5 minutes is actually the half-life, dear students. Suppose you have initial amplitude a0. In the 10 minutes, suppose the amplitude becomes 1/3. So this 10 minutes becomes the 1/3 life. Again in the next 10 minutes it is going to be a0 by 3 square. Again in the next 10 minutes we expect this value to be a0 by 3 cube. I hope this is now clear to everyone, dear students. Okay. So kindly note down, dear students, this was all about damped oscillator, and we usually expect very simple questions based on damped oscillation. Okay. After doing this damped oscillation, let us do some basic problems based on phase difference. Okay. Calculation of phase difference with the help of circle diagram. Okay, circle diagram. So let us do a question, very popular, very easy question. Two particles cross each other at half of the maximum amplitude, right? They have particles have same amplitude and frequency. Particles have same amplitude and frequency. You have to calculate the phase difference between them. See, there are two particles, both cross each other. That means one is moving towards mean position and the other one is moving towards extreme position at equals to 0. You are going to calculate the phase difference between them. See, this is the circle diagram. A reference particle which is actually moving in a circle, say in anti-clockwise sense. Right? If this is A, this is 60 degree, the projection of this particle A, 0 and minus A. Okay, right. Now, if one particle is at at A by 2, okay, suppose that particle is P and projection of that particle P comes out to be here, right? Let us see where it is moving. If it is moving in anti-clockwise sense, its velocity is like this. The x component of velocity comes out to be like this. So that means particle is this particle P. If it is here moving in anti-clockwise sense, its projection will be here moving towards mean position, right? Okay. Suppose you have particle Q, its projection will again be at x equal to half, Okay, right. Its projection will also be at x equal to a by 2. If it is moving in anticlockwise sense, its velocity will be like this, the x component of velocity will be like this. So this particle q, the projection of particle q will be here and moving towards the extreme. So, okay, we have two particles, yes, we have two particles p and q, both have same amplitude and frequency, right? Both are at x equal to a by 2, both are at x equal to a by 2, one is moving towards mean, other is moving towards extreme. We are asked to calculate the phase difference between them, okay? This is a cos 60 degree, so this became a by 2. This is also 60 degree. The phase difference between the particle is easily 120 degree, dear students. Okay, this is easily 120 degrees, right? Okay. Stop.